Later, the warmth of the Mediterranean and a restaurant pianist with a musical dream. 4 Last Songs stars Stanley Tucci at 11:05. Before that on BBC Two, and with some strong language, it's the XL version of this week's QI.
Welcome to QI, where tonight the crowd is baying, the adrenaline's pumping, and we're ready for fight or flight. In the red corner, we have Sean Fist of Fury Lock and Gentleman Johnny Vegas. And in the blue corner, Pam Float Like a Bee Ayres and Alan Sting Like a Butterfly Davies. Fabulous. So on your flights of fancy tonight, you may want to buzz somebody. So far away, Pam goes...
Oh, wow.
Oh,
it's like a machine gun.
Do you know, I think it actually is a machine gun.
I
And Johnny goes... oh, with full bodies.
I think I should lean up. It's all over me!
And Sean goes... pumping. And Alan goes... And so we plummet straight into our first topic, which is free fall parachuting. We've got some film for you. Pay close attention. So what happens next? That's the question. He's about to pull the ripcord, and what will happen?
That area around my groin, it went sort of a yellow colour.
Alan, I can understand doing one exciting thing at a time, but why do free-falling and sodomy at the same time? It seems, you know, why not just do one and then the other?
It was such a reasonable price.
Was it literally all in? But, in fact, what is the thing that happens after the ripcord is pulled?
did a parachute jump.
I know. Well, you did a static one, didn't you, I
did a
believe?
static line one. I just want to put this in so that you know I'm a woman of some substance. I did one on my own where the bloke hits you on the shoulder and says, go! And as you go, the string becomes taut and pulls off the bag and the parachute opens.
That's very much...
This is what you hope happens.
And did it?
Yes.
God. But I
relief.
believe that you, as it happens, obviously, like Alan, felt some erotic feelings towards your instructor, is that correct?
I did. I took a shine to the instructor. I think that's why I jumped out of the aircraft, really, because I wanted to impress him.
I often do that. If I like a woman, I jump out the window. Just to show my... Are you impressed? Yeah. I dig chicks in flats.
No, what, of course, we wanted you to say, which you're not stupid enough to say, but I have to confess, this is really because I, as a child, was convinced. Because every time I'd seen a parachute...
that you shoot upwards?
Yeah, that when you open the parachute, the guy goes upwards. And, of course, I subsequently learned that it's because the cameraman who's showing it is still in free fall, so relative to him, it looks as if you're going up. Look, we can see it.
There it goes, look.
It looks so much as if you're just shooting upwards.
It's the most lovely feeling when the canopy opens, because you can see everything, and you've got your toggles, and you can gently steer your way.
Also, you know you're not going to die.
Yeah.
That was a key moment for me. Now, the euphoria when it opens.
How high up? How high up were you, if I can ask?
I was 12,000 feet.
12,000? That's pretty high. I mean, that's what?
Yeah,
that's
45 seconds
2.5
of
miles.
free fall.
Do you want to know what the world record is? Do you know, in fact? Can you guess what the world record is?
Well, someone went nearly to space, didn't they, and jumped out?
Almost, yeah, which is, in fact, was 32,000 metres, which is something almost 18 miles up. Something like that.
Don't you freeze or your eardrums go or something?
Well, I can imagine if you had flappy cuffs, it would be very noisy on the way down, because he actually went... He went as...
What was it? Adamant?
with his
he went as a pirate.
He achieved...
I'm a dandy highwayman.
Well, he achieved a speed of 614 miles an hour.
Gosh.
Which is pretty scary. But he said it was gorgeous. He said it's as if he'd remained stationary and the balloon had shot upwards, so it was rather that effect. Now, why did Shorty Longbottom have a pink Spitfire?
It was puffed.
It was, say again?
Puffed.
Puffed.
It was puffed out, yes.
Oh, was
it was exhausted from its exertions.
Oh, I see. Thank God for that. I was worried for a moment that we'd strayed into territory that just wasn't quite right somehow. Actually, it was a pretty new one. It was a very light one. It was a very special one.
Did he take Hindus out on the weekend? You know, when the war slowed down?
Yeah, it got dull.
Some lass with an L plate on. Did he get her in the back and take her round town?
What were the female members of the RAF? What were they called?
Wrens.
Wafts.
WAFs.
They were
And how would
called,
you know
yes, because I was one.
that? Oh, we
I
seem
was
to be in your
one,
territory
yes.
again.
Yeah, well, I joined the Women's Royal Air Force and I went to Singapore and Germany and I had a very nice time.
Excellent. That's very good to know.
You should do recruiting.
You should.
Actually, I've always been looking for the recruiting sergeant with the bread knife, as a matter of fact, because he said to me, what do you like doing? And I said, drawing. And he put me in a drawing office, you know, which was all maths and technical drawing and that, and I couldn't do it.
What a bad man.
Evil.
They didn't have to be at school. They said, what do you want to do? I said, maths. They put me in a maths class.
No.
I mean, can you believe that?
Oh, that's not good enough.
Well, I was obviously built for dancing. Just outrageous.
Was your drawing anything to do with aerial photographs?
That sort of
then
thing,
this
yes, that sort
answer,
of thing.
this
And I
answer.
can give you a little bit of inside info here.
Go
That
on.
if you are studying aerial photography and you see a photograph which contains a cricket pitch and you happen to know the focal length of the camera, you can calculate the scale.
I thought you were going to say calculate the score then.
Because you know a cricket pitch is 22 yards, therefore...
Yeah.
But obviously, presumably, when the Spitfire's flying over Germany, the Germans are the kind of utter swine who won't play cricket.
So it was tricky if you didn't have a cricket pitch on the photograph.
Right. But suppose in the early days of the war you wanted to send an aeroplane over to take photographs.
Some sort of disguise? Camouflage?
Camouflage is the right
pink,
answer.
Pink skies or pink...
Yeah, actually, first they made it blue, and that stood out, and there it is. Shorty Longbottom's pink Spitfire.
But if it did get spotted when it was taking pictures, wouldn't the other planes just naturally flirt with it?
You'd think this would be the big
pilots would
disadvantage.
abandon the dogfighting skills and just go, hello. It came back from the Dam Busters thing, pregnant.
Well, it certainly shows you've got to love your country to be prepared to go up in one of those. But when it's a cloudy day, the sky has a sort of pink tinge to it when it's cloudy.
Tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or alternatively, if you wanted to camouflage your aircraft, you could paint it as a ship.
Yes.
It was at that point that Ayres was asked to leave the RAF.
Yes. Exactly.
The whole of Germany turned into that bloke from the Love and Hardy films. Throwing booze away.
Exactly. And is it
Stephen, I must point out, I can't hear anything you say. So I'm just...
You're welcome to stay like that or take it off.
If the show's going well, let me keep talking.
Yeah, okay. Well, there we are. Reconnaissance Spitfires were painted pink to match the clouds. Now, who gives a flying fish? There they are.
Gosh.
Aren't they amazing?
They're lovely, aren't they?
Beautiful animals.
I was told that flying fish only ever fly alone.
That sounds like a code, Alan. Flying fish only fly alone.
I've seen them. They fly in shoals.
I was on a scuba diving trip and I met a German who was adamant.
Well, I mean, of
Only
course
fly
they
alone.
They would fly on their own, wouldn't they? You mean if they don't fly in like a formation, like the Red Devils? Like,
They don't leap out and pass one another like that.
No, they don't do that. Do you know what the French for a flying fish is?
Poisson d'aéroplane.
It's slightly more creepy for those of us of a certain generation. It's exocet.
Oh, gosh.
And what do you know of the exocet?
It's a missile.
It was a missile, yeah. It was used against us in the Falklands War. So do they fly or glide?
Neither.
I've seen them and they fly for... Sorry, Johnny, I'm so excited, I must say this. They fly for ages. When I saw them, my first flying fish, I couldn't believe they were really fish because they flew for so long and they weave and they sort of duck and dive like that. And I thought they cannot possibly be fish because they flew for so long. They flew for minutes and minutes and minutes and then suddenly they all go plonk and they're gone. So you know they were really fish.
I don't know what you were eating or drinking on that occasion. I have it here on pretty solid authority that 30 seconds is a long time for them to stay in the air in one go, which is a long glide, 30 seconds. But it appears that they glide. But even if they move these pectoral fins that have become their wings, even slightly, then that would count as flying. But it seems they seem to be fixed. So.
I was going to tell Pam she probably witnessed a duck.
Yeah.
It wasn't a duck. Well, I heard what he said. It wasn't a duck. It was not a duck at all.
No.
Is that what he said?
He meant it.
Now, my sister breeds ducks, so I know the difference between a duck and a flying fish.
That's a proud
It just looks to me like you keep telling me to F off. You duck. Duck, fish,
I didn't realise you'd noticed.
That kind of language, pal. I'm glad my ears are cut off.
Apparently, the people who most love them are the people of Tao, which is an island off Taiwan, where it's their staple diet.
Do they taste nice, then?
I guess.
It's hard to catch, I'd have thought.
Exactly. Do you use a 12-bore or a net?
One in each hand. That's what I usually do.
No, you just make a little landing strip. Put some lights on it, you know, some tea candles.
And
then just sit there with a stick waiting for them to go.
Talk it in.
Oh, they've all got grandeur ideas of being jumbo jets.
Yeah. Here's a supplementary question, Hameva. What's the opposite of a flying fish?
Tunnelling flamingo.
Is it going to be some sort of bottom-dwelling?
What do fish do usually?
Is it a singing bat?
Fish usually swim. What usually flies?
Birds.
Birds.
Swimming bird.
A swimming bird would be...
There's loads of them. There's
There are
millions
loads of them, but which birds are particularly astonishing?
Chocolate biscuit.
Cormorants.
Chocolate biscuit.
Chocolate biscuit.
Pick up a stork.
No, it is indeed a penguin. And the fact is, they have their wings, which are, of course, now perfect flippers for swimming. But the fact is, to a scientist, swimming and flying are absolutely no different. It's the same muscles, the same principles at work. It's just the medium of one is water and the medium of the other is air. So as far as the penguin's concerned, it's doing what all birds do. It's just doing it in the water.
Stephen, it looks magnificent, but what's the point of developing that if no other birds can see it?
Why would it want other birds to see
Well,
it?
you're going, it's
We're the only
magnificent.
creatures,
He's
aren't
swimming around going, look at this, look what I've done. And all the other birds are going, look at that fucking idiot.
We're the only creatures, Johnny, that like to show off, I think.
Oh,
I
right.
don't think animals like to show off, do they? Apart from peacocks, and quite a few others, come to think of it now. All of them, and the ones with the spines and the horns, yeah.
So, from flying fish to the fishing fly. Oh, ho. Why do women make the best fishermen? Yeah.
They're all descended from mermaids.
It's a very sweet thought. I don't know that that's true.
I can imagine you whispering that into a girl's ear.
And in 1654, they negotiated a deal with the octopus witch to let them also have the voices back.
I'm still asleep.
I need to write this down.
If I can teach my kids this.
It must be. This is
16.
It was a massive summit.
It was. You might be right, Johnny. I'm not sure.
It
I'll
was
check.
like Rivers of Blood speech because a lot of them after all were told to fuck off and short.
Right. I see that now. OK. OK.
I think I actually know this.
Yes, go on. Tell.
I did know a bloke. He used to get his wife to give him a discarded pubic hair because there was a chemical in it, and he used to rig his boilies fishing for carp because they think that it gives off.
You're absolutely right. This is what people think. No. You're right.
I'm a pervert for years.
You're right that this is what people think. As it happens, it is completely untrue. Someone wrote a letter to the Field in which he said he'd had huge success using his wife's pubic hairs, and a whole generation of fishermen copied this. And there was a belief that pheromones, which is probably the chemicals you were after, pheromones that women give off. But there are a number of problems with this, chief of which is that there is absolutely no evidence that humans give off pheromones of any kind.
So why are women?
The fact is, the British record for the largest fish caught on these islands is held by women. There was a 64-pound salmon caught by a Miss Georgina Ballantyne. But the fact is, she was a very experienced angler.
She is.
Why does she think it's a saxophone?
I will be in a relationship. Oh, dear God, throw me back.
In fact, and there was a 66-pound catfish caught at Oundle by another woman, Bev Street. The point is that if men had caught these enormous fish, no one would be groping around for reasons as to why men were such good fishermen. The fact that women happen to hold the record is everyone suddenly going, well, there must be some explanation for that. It can't be because they're good at fishing. It must be because they give off a chemical.
Because their pubes are attracted to fish.
Right, yeah. Well, there you have it anyway. Fantastic. Now, when lions fight bears, which one wins? Sorry about our picture. Yes, Johnny.
Which one's had the Stella?
Let's leave your sponsor out of it if we can, Johnny.
Will they never meet because they're on different continents?
Well, they wouldn't naturally meet, but as it happens, they have met. It's been organised. A very sick human...
It's been organised? In a car park?
Well, kind of in a car park in California by, I'm afraid, it was during the gold rush.
I'd back a lion. I'd go lion.
You'd go with a lion, would you? Well, no. I'm afraid it is the bear every time.
Really?
The skull of the lion is pretty thin, and although it's muscular, it has no real bone strength in the way that a bear does. And a bear can just crush the skull of a lion like that, and the lion never gets a chance to get in there and do its thing on the neck. And the bear would win every time. It was during the gold rush, the Californians, to entertain the prospectors and the miners, started with bears against various other animals, against a bull, for example.
Oh, yeah,
it's so cruel and unpleasant. And people got bored with the bear always winning, so they shipped in African lions, and the lions put on a brave show to start with, and everyone thought that the noise they made, they're bound to win, and they roared in there, but the bear was just too much every time, just banged on, crushed its skull. Talking of these match-offs, I mean, the bear and the lion is just sick and unpleasant, and I'm sorry that it ever happened. But people obviously imagine various ones. Muhammad Ali versus Bruce Lee is one that's imagined a lot. Who do you think would win in such a face-off?
I think for speed and agility, I'd go with Lee.
Yeah,
again, you see, most people would consider you hugely wrong. As far as speed, no. The boxer speed, especially Ali's, infinitely faster than any kicks or moves that Lee could make.
Are you suggesting that in those films his prowess was exaggerated?
I'm afraid it was speeded up, and I don't want to upset any martial arts fans here, but Ali was 6'3" and 236 pounds. Lee was 5'7" and 135 pounds, which is a big disadvantage. The kicks used by Lee are nothing like as fast as the punches that Ali was used to. The fact that they appeared so fast in Lee's films was cinematic, really. And also, punches come in flurries, and the kicks are kind of one every, you know...
My dad was a boxer.
Was he?
Yeah.
Mine was an Irish setter. No. Anyway, sorry. Was he really?
Very superstitious man he was. He had this horseshoe that he took everywhere with him.
Yes. And he kept in a boxing glove.
You must have known my dad.
That would backfire, though. That would break your hand, wouldn't it?
You feel it would. In fact, let's come to a question almost on that very subject, because it's quite interesting. Name something that's much easier to do when you're wearing boxing gloves.
Frisk a porcupine.
Very good.
Give up masturbating.
Give
up smoking.
Yes, but I suppose what I was coming to is what's so bizarre about boxing gloves in a way is that what it really makes it easy to do is for you to kill someone.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to kill people wearing boxing gloves than it was ever in the bare-knuckle days.
Why?
In the bare-knuckle days, almost no one ever died. There are 2 recorded instances, 150 years of bare-knuckle prize fighting.
I like the shorts.
They're pretty splendid, aren't they?
You can't hit someone as hard, can you? Repeatedly.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you try and hit someone on the jaw, you break your own fist. And so in the old bare-knuckle days, people punched against the chest and the stomach and the arms and everything else, but they avoided that because the chin, they would hurt themselves. As soon as you put gloves on, they were battering each other in the face. And suddenly, I mean, 4 people a year die in America alone from boxing injuries. I mean, it's a very dangerous sport indeed. But in the bare-knuckle days, which we think of, which had no time limits to their rounds, people would survive and walk away. Do you know who those 2 were, incidentally?
One's called Jack, I'm sure of it.
Oh, you're absolutely right. The one on the right is called Arthur John Jack Johnson. How did you know that? Is it written up there?
There's always one called Jack.
You're right. Well, the other one is called James Jackson's Jeffries. They're all J's. What happened was that the one on the left was a world champion for many times, undefeated 7 times.
Those shorts have been photoshopped on.
I think you may be right.
He did it in the nude!
And it's a rather unpleasant story, but it has a good ending in a way. Is that he retired, and the guy on the right, who was known as the Galveston Giant, Jack Johnson, became world champion. And, of course, the racist world of America didn't like the fact that this was the first black champion. And, of all people, the author of White Fang, Jack London, the novelist, coined the phrase Great White Hope. And, in fact, they brought the man on the left out of retirement, who said, I'm only doing it to prove that a white man will always be better than a black man. And he'd be pleased to know he was pounded in the ring and lost.
Never back the white man.
Yeah, exactly. So it took place in July the 4th, 1910. And Johnson, on the right there, went on to open a nightclub in Harlem, which he sold to an Irishman who changed
July
its...
the 4th, so it was a big...
Oh, it was really big.
Day.
Oh, it was huge.
There's a film about
Boxing has always been
There's a
huge.
famous film about it.
Yeah.
And he was accused of rape because he slept with a... He married a white woman in a state, and they travelled to a state where you weren't allowed to have...
Right,
union
so they
with the
arrested
white
him
woman. So
there.
they arrested him.
Yeah.
The land of the free.
I know. Well, we have a pretty grim record ourselves, of course, I suppose, but...
How dare you?
Well, not us.
You can sleep with anyone you like. Take a pic. No, go
Boxing
back.
gloves. Boxing gloves allow you to hurt your opponent more. The introduction of boxing gloves made boxing a far more dangerous sport than bare-knuckle fighting ever was. In the words of the British boxer and former world middleweight champion Alan Minter, sure, there have been injuries and deaths in boxing, but none of them serious. Now, to something a bit nicer. I am a fluffy little duckling, and you want to take me to the cinema, all right? And if I go to the cinema with you, which part of the following film is the scary bit? Well, there are 2 little moments in it. There's scene 1, that's scene 1, and there's scene 2. There you are. Which bit would a little fluffy duckling like me be scared of?
So is this to do with birds of prey, predator birds, and the one where...
It's to do with the fact that ducklings, even newly hatched ducklings, have an instinct of fear for a particular shape. Basically, the one that's going left to right, there, it would be scared stiff of that,
Why does
because
it
it
go
looks like a
backwards?
hawk. But that looks like a goose going right to
I
left.
see,
And it-
right.
You see what I mean?
Oh, I
And it knows that from the moment it's hatched.
And
It
goose
has
is
an
like
instinct.
family, yeah?
Goose are fine. Well, they don't attack. They're poultry. They don't savage young ducklings.
My brother-in-law's got a gander.
Your family is quite something. Your brother-in-law has got a gander.
It's got a gander and it's got a very, very nasty disposition. And when my brother-in-law approaches it, he has to approach it while brandishing a dustbin lid to protect himself.
Geese are pretty savage animals.
Yeah, it's
They
very
are.
nasty.
They can be. They can be.
So who'd win between those 2?
I fear the hawk would
I
probably
fear
get the
it
better.
would.
Because, mind you, a lot of geese can frighten off just about anything.
Yeah, I've seen a swan chasing a goose, and that was fantastic. That was in Clissold Park in North London, and suddenly there was a bit of commotion. Only a couple of swans, quite a lot of geese, and then it kicked off, and then they took off the geese, but they were so frightened, they didn't really get very high, so they were kind of coming about head height through the park, scattering families, and then once you got up from them, then this really livid swan came after them, parting your hair. I don't know what they'd done.
Well, it doesn't take much for the swan, does it? It doesn't take much to upset a swan.
No,
No.
they
They are very touchy.
The fear of hawks in newly hatched ducklings appears to be innate. Now, what would you do with 5 dozen French balloons?
Pop them.
Pop them. That's a good answer. Yeah, they are big balloons, big balloons. If I give you the date, 1871, does that help you out? What happened to Paris in the Franco-Prussian War in 1871?
Well, there was a siege and they had to eat everything in the zoo.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely right.
There was a terrible siege.
Very good, definite points. Actually, while they're on the subject of that, I think I even have the menu.
What, printed on a napkin?
Yeah, well, this was... They ate all the animals, including the 2 elephants, Castor and Pollux. There you are. Plum pudding, a rum, and the moelle, that's the marrow of a horse. Gigot de dog, dog flanks.
They still made it sound fancy.
Yeah, don't they? Shoulder and fillets of braised dog.
Weird thing is, all
Dog
tasted like
cutlets.
chicken.
And salamis of rat.
So they were under siege and they printed menus.
Well, because although they were besieged, there were still rich people who were prepared to pay, and I guess the fancy hotels that had their sauces and their techniques just changed from
What was the husband and wife going, you know what, let's shut the bistro, open up the zoo? Were they in the Dragon's Den going, look, we've got this idea, what? Look, elephant stew. I don't know, your business is reliant on a siege.
Well,
So do they try and break the siege with flying balloons in?
well, no, what they did was fly balloons out with mail.
Please send herbs and spices. This dog...
They probably did, because, unbelievably, what would happen, they'd send these balloons out, and they would go to certain central bases outside France, which were still controlled by the French, and these letters would go out, and extraordinarily, they had mastered microfilm by this time, 1871. I don't quite know how you'd believe it, but they were able to ring little pigeons and send the pigeons in with these microfilmed letters, and over 1 million pieces of personal correspondence got into Paris that way, so ballooning them out.
And they made a cracking starters.
Exactly, and although the Germans had...
Dinner's here, and a message.
Poor pigeon, it's true.
If you were a pigeon, wouldn't you change the message to, whatever you do, don't eat the pigeon?
That would be the smart move.
We've tattooed the plans on the inside of his kidney, let him live a natural life.
That's who you look like, though, the pigeon in the wacky races.
That's it!
Stop the pigeon!
Grab him, grab him.
Yeah.
I know it was me going for Tom Cruise. I dream about flying. It's a good dream to have that, isn't it, apparently?
It is very common, yeah. And does it go well?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does, right. Because it is based... But it's... I think I'm a giving person. I'm trying to tell other people how easy it is.
Yeah.
So I go, look, all you've got to do is open your arms and do this, and you fly. And then I watch my family fall to the death.
Have you tried to interpret that? Can you imagine what it might mean?
I'll probably kill them.
I think it means...
In a rage.
I think it means you're gay.
Does it? Really?
Yeah, they put pigeons in the balloons, sail the balloons over...
Fuck the pigeons, Stephen. Am I gay?
Maybe the wish was father of the thought in my case. I don't know. I would see.
Do you
something.
believe I can fly?
I would ask your boyfriend. He will be able to tell you. Only he can know in the end.
How could he know he's pre-op?
Oh,
He's too busy saving up for the operation. You think I'm going to go home and wake him up with foolish questions about if I'm gay or not?
no, you're right. Well, the answer was that a balloon and pigeon double act was used to ship 1 million letters into Paris during the siege of 1870. Now, what kind of birds used to go out with Viking sailors? No.
I'm just trying to look at your penis.
No, don't keep it there.
You can experiment.
I've gone right off you.
Why?
No,
I'm
can
gay.
I just... Can I just
Sorry,
rein you in here to think about what kind of bird used to go out with...
Turkeys, chickens,
No.
geese, swans. Birds that we didn't have here till they arrived.
I didn't even hear
That's
the
what I'm
question. He
working
was
on.
trying to look at my penis. Imagine if it came out that you were gay, old Compton Street would be like 28 days later. They just keep... Hot dog wrappers blowing around. Doors flapping on bars.
I'm really running up and down. I lost my daddy in the great outing of 2008.
Oh, Lord.
Sorry, what was the question?
What sort of birds would a Viking take out?
What sort of birds would a Viking take out?
we'd have to go out with a Viking.
To help them find their way
Yes.
Anyone
through
with
the
a
fog.
Not through the fog, no. It was to discover new lands, which the Vikings like to do. What would be the purpose of it? How useful would a bird be? It's really cunning.
It was one that would go up high and see further than you could see.
Yes,
A talking bird.
Either that, or imagine a bird that couldn't land on the water, couldn't swim.
So when it saw land, it would head towards land and you'd follow it.
But if there was no land...
It would drown.
it would get back in the ship. Because it would go, oh, nowhere for me to go but the ship. So you take a bird, it's got to be a non-migratory bird, one that doesn't usually fly over the water, that can't land in the water. And you let it fly, it goes up to about 5,000 feet and you can still see it. And if there's land, it will shoot off to the land, so you follow in exactly that direction. If there's no land and you're still, right in the middle of the ocean, it would just come back down again and then you carry on sailing.
Clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it a budgie?
It's not a budgie. What a pity. It's actually Noah used
Is it a gander?
Oh, it's
Not
a dove.
No, before the dove, if you remember in the Bible, he used a...
Hunters, helpers.
Very good!
I was going to say that.
The audience.
I was going to say that right at the start.
Oh, there it is. There's
raven.
the raven. Yeah, a raven. Someone
Can't
in the audience.
land on the water.
So the religious maniac in the audience got it right. No, I'm only joking. He was indeed, of course. Noah used that first.
Of course, yeah.
Isn't that a cunning thing to do? And there was a particular Viking, whose name was Floxy.
Is he the one with the pink ship?
Well, there was no... Hang on, I got his name a bit wrong.
Very long ears.
There was a group of them. They were called Faxi, Thorolf, Herjolf and Flocky. And Flocky is, to this day, apparently, Vilgedarsen. He's known to this day as Raven Flocky because he discovered, at least for the Vikings, he discovered Iceland that way by sending a raven. Now, in which direction
Yeah,
do
but what if the raven was
Hello.
going... Sorry. What if the ravens are sat in a studio now making their own show going... And it was the first raven that ingeniously used humans
I like the way your mind
to
works.
transport us, you know what I mean?
It's the
Funny,
Douglas
they wouldn't
Adams
say
white mice
that.
principle,
They wouldn't
yeah.
say that. They go,
Or possibly...
think these things
Yeah.
through.
Nevermore, I believe they
There's
could
nothing
say.
worse than a half-baked idea.
No, don't put it, the poor thing. Right. In which direction do rockets accelerate best? Yes.
Down. Just felt like doing that.
Oh, fair enough.
So they leave the ground quicker than they return to the ground. Is that the thing?
No, it's where do they get their maximum acceleration, in which position. It's actually the
Horizontal.
point... Horizontal is the right answer. That's the point. Is although they have to leave quickly like that, they tip, and the moment their weight is not over the thruster, they actually become like aeroplanes, and they generate lift, and they're like planes, almost. And that's most of their work is done horizontally, not vertically.
I once bought a giant rocket for fireworks night. It costs about 30 quid, when you get a really big one.
Yeah.
And you get a tube, and you have to sit it in the tube, and then you light it, and off it goes. But we stuck the tube in the earth, and then we put the rocket in the tube, and we didn't know we'd done this.
Oh, dear.
Stuck the rocket in the earth as well. And then we lit it, and we were quite close to it. And then it started to sort of shake a bit and wobble, and it was quite a long time before it took off. And then I thought, oh, this doesn't look right. And we were about to run, and it went about 10 feet in the air, and it went boom! Couldn't see anything, there was smoke, I lost my hearing. When my hearing came back, I just hear everybody laughing. So, Calling for the smoke. Are you all right? Is everyone all right? Brilliant.
You've done the same every year.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a proper one and lit it and did it properly, and it went about 200 foot in the air, went poof.
Exactly.
You know when the Green and Common protest about cruise missiles?
I remember that, yes.
And one of the things they used to say was oh, you know, these missiles, they're shaped like penises. They're like about man's aggression, men... You're thinking, well, no, they're shaped like that because that's the most aerodynamic shape. Well, they wouldn't be very successful if they were shaped like vaginas, would they? And they just came... and then just a big... on your head. They wouldn't behave. They wouldn't work, would they?
Yeah, I knew.
It's got nothing to do with science.
No.
Like a big sort of, you know, a mushroom, like a big squashy mushroom landing on top of you like that.
OK, yeah.
Would a duckling be afraid of it? Would it think, there's a big chunk of metallic rape coming my way?
I don't know what's happened to us here.
Or would they put When the Wind Blows on the DVD?
That would scare a duckling, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. That shits itself.
Yeah, but after 3 weeks of doing that, somebody from the council comes and moves you out the park. So then you have to go home and work on a tiny DVD player with When the Wind Blows and just gently lecture them on the dangers of any penile
Ducklings can
weapon.
float, you know. I used to have a flat roof, and a duck made a nest up there and had ducklings. And
On the roof?
Yeah, on the roof. And they jump over the side.
Well, they were right.
They're fine, they float. They're so light, they float. And then they land and they get gathered up and to head off onto Hybrid Corner and get run over.
Did you get a fountain and join the mafia? Have a breakdown.
Sopranos, you mean?
Yeah.
Tony Soprano
yeah.
sees ducklings in his swimming pool.
You're right.
That triggers the
That's a
whole
sign,
series.
yes, of course, you're quite
Oh, it's all right coming from me, but I say...
I've forgotten that.
I filled in the crucial first
You
bit.
have cried wolf.
You said the second bit.
Yeah. Anyway, rockets accelerate...
I'm gay!
Yeah.
Everybody out! Come on!
Rockets accelerate best horizontally and towards the east, in fact, because that's the way the world spins. And now to the point where, as your fright instructor, I propel you towards the yawning void of general ignorance. So fingers on your firing buttons, if you please. Which of the armed services refers to the left and right sides of an aeroplane as port and starboard?
Idiot! Would be the Navy, wouldn't it?
No, it's emphatically not the Navy, in fact, for very good reason.
The RAF.
The RAF do, and the Army does, and all the other, but not the Fleet Air Arm or the Navy, because they have aeroplanes on boats sometimes at different angles, and they have to keep port and starboard as being according to the axis of the boat, because otherwise, if the plane's facing the wrong way, you could get death and confusion and disaster. So in the training manuals for that Sea Harrier, it says the left wing and the right wing. And now, what's this chap wearing here? Please show me while we're still in the Navy and the Army.
A busby.
Oh, thank you, Pam. You were doing so well. No, he's not wearing a busby.
A bear skin.
It is a bear skin.
Yes.
I was just saying medal.
It's called a busby, though, isn't it?
It's not called a busby. We'll show you a busby, actually. There, on the right hand and the left hand. Those are busbies,
really?
much shorter. But what is the bear skin made of?
Burr.
Nylon.
Wood.
Acrylic.
Burr.
You're quite right.
Ostensibly.
The skin of a bear.
Burr.
Burr. They've tried making bear skins out of acrylics and nylons and various other things, but they get bedraggled in the wet and they stand up with static electricity and look preposterous.
What?
So, of course, you wouldn't want to look preposterous on parade.
What would win in a fight between them two arts?
But if you go back to the first photograph of the guy in the bearskin there, do you know, Pam, because you said who did you say was in the
My
Guards?
dad was a Grenadier Guard.
He was a
yes,
Grenadier
he
Guard.
was.
Now, there are 5 regiments in the Brigade of Guards. Can you tell me which he's in? There's a way of telling. Do you know what the way is?
I'm afraid I don't know. My father would be very pleased
The
with me.
buttons is the way of telling. If you're in the Grenadier Guards, your buttons are evenly spaced. In pairs, like this, it means he's in the Coldstream Guards.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If they're in threes, you're in the Scottish
there's an
Guards.
Irish Guards as
And
well.
if you're in fours, it's the Irish Guards, and fives, the Welsh Guards.
What if you've got a zip?
If you're a zip...
Yeah, well, you're like a stripper, it's just Velcro. I'm going to change your guard, and I'm going to be trooping my colour.
Well, you know, of course, guards were indeed there were lots of stories about men doing things with guardsmen in the 50s and 60s. And that story of Churchill was woken up one morning when he was Prime Minister in the 50s. And he said, I'm afraid there's a bit of a scandal, Prime Minister. There's one of our backbench MPs was found with a guardsman in St James's Park in the bushes last night by the police, and the papers have got hold of it. Churchill said, last night? He said, yes. Churchill said, very cold last night, wasn't it? And the PPA, who said, well, yes, actually, Prime Minister, I believe it was one of the coldest February nights for 30 years. Churchill said, makes you proud to be British. That's probably they had that attitude now. Isn't that good? Anyway, yes, the tall hat worn by the foot guards is a bearskin. Short one with the flaps worn by the hussars and the Royal Horse Artillery. That's a Busby. Now, how did knights in armour get onto their horses in medieval days?
Winched.
Winched? No, not winched. They weren't winched.
They had a block and tackle.
No, that's
I know they were
winched.
winched on. I saw a programme about a film in which someone had to wear a suit of armour and they were winched on.
Yeah, that may well be.
It was a magnetic saddle.
No, they just mounted in the normal way.
They cut its legs off.
No.
Right? And then when he's got on, they stick the legs back on with splints, right? And then they realised they'd basically knackered the horse. Yeah. So then they'd put runners on, and that's how we get the rocking horse today. They would be dragged into battle, pretty much dead, but it was more about the image than the horse actually working.
Thank you for that. Actually, the point is, oddly enough, a full suit of armour only weighed, I say only, weighed about 55 pounds, whereas today's combat soldier has a pack of about 150 pounds, certainly if he's a commando, yeah. So,
just sink in the mud.
And a fireman with his breathing apparatus has more than 55 pounds, and they climb ladders and do all kinds of things. So, in fact, they would, as that picture shows, simply mount the horse. It was an entire 19th century invention, propagated mostly by Mark Twain. It was also the fault of Laurence Olivier in his film Henry V, where he insisted on showing the men being lowered onto the horses, despite the fact that his historical advisor told him it was complete nonsense. He went ahead and did it. So there you are. Anyway, that's one of those fantasies.
That's one of those myths that
one
really
of those
exists.
myths that
Yeah, genuinely does, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. Everybody thinks it, and it isn't true. And now, be very afraid. Be very, very afraid indeed. Or invite me to come outside, because I'm ready to tell you the scores.
Oh, no.
Well, it's really, really interesting. In first place, would you believe, and it's only her first appearance, it's Pamela's! In second place, with +1, is Johnny Vegas! Oh, yeah! Miles behind. With -11 is Alan Davis, who's not last. Which means that free-falling at terminal velocity this evening on -12, Sean Locke. So that's all from us this week. My thanks to Sean, Johnny, Pam and Alan. And I leave you with this thought on the subject of fight or flight from Michael Friedman. The scientific name for an animal that doesn't either run from or fight its enemies is lunch. Good night.
More QI Friday at 9 on BBC One. In the film next here on BBC Two, on a sunny Mediterranean island, Stanley Tucci is a frustrated restaurant pianist with a plan.